The juvenile justice system is failing those it claims to serve and leaving those labeled as rehabilitated to figure out reentry all on their own. Hello, and welcome to the Juvenile Justice Podcast. I am Cassondra Sharrah, the narrative editor. We have Louis Virgen, our lead researcher.
And I am Anahi Ibarra Mcdonough, which I am the lead researcher. And we have Juliana Aguilar, who is the audio editor.
Can you tell me a little bit about how your work gives you firsthand knowledge of the juvenile justice system?
Well, that's interesting that you say that because I'm currently working on side by side with the state of California for the juvenile initiative to have them released. Hopefully, that's not giving up too much anonymity, but unfortunately, when it comes down to the youth population, I have no access to records. I have no access to anything. So unfortunately, when they do become of age and they do get transferred to an institution and or age out of the youth centers that they're located at, unfortunately, I have no access to any information. So coming from my standpoint and my job, unfortunately, I feel that my hands are tied and there is very minimal information received that I can help them the best that I can. So I can only hope that the connections I do make for them are adequate enough. But there is a big barrier, and that is from the youth information over to the adult information. So unfortunately, I do not have much data on the youth aspect of my reentry career, but I do my best to help the institutions navigate that.
Youth under the age of 18 that commit a crime are typically processed through the juvenile justice system. Although very similar to the adult criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system operates according to the premise that youth are fundamentally different from adults in terms of the level of responsibility and the potential for successful rehabilitation. Whereas being found guilty of a serious crime would result in incarceration for an adult being tried through the criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system aims to avoid incarceration for the benefit of the youth. This is due to many recent studies showing that once a person is incarcerated, the odds of them being incarcerated again increase. For example, according to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, more than 65% of those released from prison in California return within 3 years. For this and many other reasons, the juvenile justice system avoids incarceration when possible. Instead, the juvenile justice system's main goals include rehabilitation, addressing treatment needs, skill development, and successful reintroduction of youth into their local communities. This is accomplished through a variety of strategies, but most notable are the programs offered to youth in and out of the juvenile justice system. One of the most prominent of these programs is the Fresh Lifelines for Youth program, also known as FLY. This is a nonprofit organization which was founded in 2000 and is dedicated to breaking the cycle of violence, crime, and incarceration of teens. The FLY program participants are youth ages 12 to 18 who have had behavioral challenges putting them at risk of system entry, are on probation, or are incarcerated in the juvenile justice system. FLY provides youth motivation and support to stay out of trouble with the law, get engaged in school, and begin changing behaviors affecting their lives. This is done through a unique combination of legal education, leadership training, and one-on-one mentoring. Do you think that, if they have a problem placing these people, that we're going to have a bunch of kids who are, lost in this world and seeking approval from gang members, or maybe have severe mental health needs, and are violent because they need medication that they're not getting, or some other need is not being met? Do you think it's going to create a public safety issue to be releasing all of these individuals without placements? Or do you think the state is going to really maybe take it back and do it in a step period?
Honestly, I feel like time is gonna be of essence, right? We have this whole year to figure out what the state of California is doing and how they're going to negotiate with the communities and or private sector, whatever it looks like for these youths to whether it's be medicated or evaluated, whatever that looks like for the state of California. Do I feel that there is going to be a public safety issue? I think when we look at the cultural change going on in the state of California, I think there's, the Black Lives Matter movement. There's all these movements that are going on that are being affected or that are affecting our communities, not in a negative way, in a positive way. We're just bringing awareness around other things other than this kind of structured, society.
First, to get a better understanding of why children commit crimes, it is relevant to look at what crimes they are committing. According to kids' data, the number of crimes committed by children have dropped over the last 5 years. When defining the separation of their crimes in their statistics, kids' data explains felonies include violent offenses such as assault, homicide, kidnapping, rape, and robbery, property offenses such as arson, burglary, forgery, and theft, drug and alcohol offenses, sex offenses, and others such as driving under the influence, hit and run, and weapon possession offenses. The arrest rates among children also vary by their race, with African American youth arrested for felonies at a rate 13.5 per 1,000. While this may seem like a small number, it is 5 times the rate of Hispanic youth at 2.8 per 1,000 and white youth at 1.4 per 1,000. This statistic follows through to substance use arrests. Non-white youth are more likely to be arrested for possession and or use of illicit drugs.
Imagine being raised by parents with substance abuse problems, or even being born addicted to yourself because of the choices your parents made while you were carried in the womb. Do you think you can put yourself in their shoes and still have the same outcome or make the same choices in life? It is very difficult to imagine, let alone living that. Experiencing this could likely be traumatizing. What was the circumstance that actually sent you on that group home? If you don't mind sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, something that happened the night before that they had arrested me on campus at Salinas High, The probation and the cops came for me because they had found the car with bullets and a whole bunch of gang paraphernalia, and somehow they knew that I was a part of it, and yeah, they came to get me at school, and from there they arrested me. Went to juvenile hall.
And how old are you? How old were you when that happened?
Like 16 or 17.
The abuse of prescription drugs and even recreational drugs has become an epidemic, especially in the United States. And not only the users are the ones who suffer, but also the children around them. Children born addicted have to go through the same type of withdrawal process as adults would. The National Institute of Children's Health Quality directly tells us that over 20,000 babies are born each year dependent or on illegal or prescription drugs and suffer neonatal abstinence syndrome, also known as NAS, atypical of opiate withdrawal. The only difference being that the babies who are born addicted had no say in the part intake of the drugs.
For felony arrests in California for the year 2020, African American and Hispanic youth accounted for 80% of all arrests amongst the population. The most common felony leading to the arrest of a child in California was a violent offense, previously defined as an assault, homicide, kidnapping, rape, and robbery. These offenses accounted for 42% of arrests of youth in California in 2020. Property offenses, previously described as arson, burglary, forgery, theft, made up for 26%, and other offenses made up for approximately 27%. The remaining 3 was due to drug and alcohol use and sex offenses. This is perhaps troubling because if one is to assume that drugs and alcohol are the main reason for youth committing crimes, that number would be expected to be higher.
We need to be at a place of acceptance, right? That these individuals that are aging out may not ever, no, I don't want to say may not ever, will struggle to re-enter into society, because at this point, they're no longer being fed, they're no longer being sheltered, right? They're no longer being told what to do. And now they have this awareness of choice. And again, like what you were saying, is how quick are they going to revert back to the gang to seek that validation, to feel that protection, and to basically get fed, right? And that's where I think beyond this youth initiative, I think it really stems back to, can we put more money into our schools, especially the poor neighborhoods? What does it look like to have after school programs? I haven't heard a lot about the Boys and Girls Club. I don't know what happened to that, but again, how can we get, community involvement from those that have aged out of the youth center, completed a life sentence on a prison level, right? Because even the adults that are, that I've dealt with that are coming out of doing a life term got in when they were 18 years old, and it was gang related, right? And here they are coming out 25, 30 years later. And the only thing that I can tell them when I meet them face to face is, please use your story to save a life.
Children who struggle with mental health disorders are more likely to commit crimes. In fact, mental health in adolescents can lead them to incarceration simply because they need mental health assistance and are not getting it, according to Grisso. Also, according to Grisso, research shows that almost 2/3 of youth in juvenile justice detention centers and correctional facilities today meet the criteria for one or more mental health disorder. Additionally, there are differences between the male and female populations. For example, girls are more likely than boys to have a co-occurring mental health disorder or more than one diagnosis. Even recently, it is estimated that in 2020, 70% of youth offenders have a mental health disorder or untreated mental health issue. There's also a heavy correlation between the likelihood of a child engaging in criminal activity and their parents having a mental health disorder or substance use disorder. Finally, poor parenting can also influence children in a negative way. Examples of this are neglect or abuse of the children by the parental figures or guardians, absence of supervision, discipline that is disproportionate to the behavior exhibited by the child, or a lack of emotional availability in the family unit.
Sounds like there's multiple reasons, right, that children become justice involved. And that sounds like you're saying neglect in home. They're not getting what they need. So they're essentially raising themselves, and they look to others to raise them, whether that be gangs or, that friend who's a drug addict but has a bunch of freedom from their parents. Pretty much anywhere other than where we would hope they would look, which would be their school system or, a well-behaved friends, family, or something to that nature. So then they're turning to the gangs to be validated and accepted, or they're looking to make ends meet because they're neglected at home.
To address these challenges, it is necessary to examine the underlying systematic factors that contribute to juvenile crime. Poverty, racism, social exclusion, and inadequate access to education and healthcare are all factors that contribute to the criminalization of youth. These issues must be addressed if society is to be effectively reduce the number of juvenile offenders and ensure that those who are incarcerated receive the support and resources necessary for successfully re-entry. Moreover, efforts must be made to create a more rehabilitative and restorative juvenile justice system that prioritizes rehabilitation, reintegration, and victim offender mediation. This approach emphasizes the importance of addressing the underlying causes of criminal behavior and emphasizes the importance of empowering young people to take responsibility for their actions and make amends for harm caused.
What was the most memorable event you remember while being part of this group home?
Honestly, out of all things, I think, after a good 5 months of being there, they let you on outings, whether you could go on home passes to visit your family, or on the week after, you'd go on an outing to the town, either by yourselves or as a whole group of everybody who qualified, and they take us to the movies or the buffets. But one of the special things that they did for us to help us out, they somehow got a hold of competitions of chess, and I was really good at chess. And I wanted a big old chessboard with these big old pieces that I got to bring back home with me. For some reason, that always stuck out because chess, it's strategy. It's a really good game.
Oh, yeah, you gotta be really smart to be able to know how to play that game correctly.
I appreciate your time so much. Thank you all for listening.